malignaggi here for Paulie TV. We have shots fired from Devin Haney and the crew. Okay, I'm an analyst, right, guys? I mean, I analyze fights, I break down statistics, I break down fighting styles more than anything, and I really didn't feel like it felt like I was hating on Devin Haney. I felt like more so I was, bringing out some valid points that should be made. And I'd like to have seen him in a situation where he was in, some 50-50 fights, some fights where, there was a threat to him, if we're going to call him a champion. Now, granted, he just won the title. I never believed he was champion until he beat Kambosos, so I didn't have a problem with him not fighting those 50-50 fights before. And Kambosos, you can't make up who the undisputed champion is. Kambosos is the guy that beat Lopez. Got to give you credit for that. So I really didn't think it had anything to do with hating, because once you don't consider Devin Haney a world champion prior to the Kambosos fight, he's a prospect / contender, and he's moving his way into the prime of his career. And so there was never really an issue I had with the level of opposition and what he was doing. The issue started when you start to play pretend with popcorn belts. Just like I'll tell you, Gervonta Davis is a popcorn belt now that Haney has the undisputed title. And they sit there selling his fights as world title fights and flaunting it when he's not a champion. Gervonta Davis has only been a champion at 130 pounds, and that's it. So, it's not like I didn't keep the same energy with other guys who had popcorn belts. But it's when you start flaunting it. I never really see Gervonta calling himself a world champion. He just called himself a good fighter, and he sells himself that way. Haney was like, sitting there calling himself a world champion. And then, you're fighting guys that probably wouldn't be fighting in world title fights. Now, I guess we got to go back to the beginning, right? I mean, everybody knows that, Haney said he'd never lose to a white boy routine, and this kind of all started back then, right? But I didn't really have a problem with Devin saying that. You're a young fighter, you're promoting, you're saying controversial stuff. I can kind of ride with that. I used to do that when I was young too. I probably still do that to some extent, right? So I don't have a problem with that. And he's young. I've seen other fighters that I rooted for, like Mayweather, when he was young, say that. So that wasn't really what my issue was. My issue is that all the racist fans that he has, it lights the gasoline match under them. You know what I'm saying? And that's more so what saying something like that does now, especially in a time where there's a lot of sensitivity on that subject. I'm not going to, get mad at a 20-year-old kid, which he was at that time, with his dreams in front of him, who's working hard and all that other stuff. As a matter of fact, when I gave the response to that question, remember, I tried to kind of brush it off, but the reporter kind of nudged me a little bit, and so I gave a further opinion, which ended up creating a lot of controversy. Regardless, that's not what this video is about. This video is about, I'm probably going to have to now roast Devin Haney, because now I got to give it to you straight. The straight way that I kind of had always avoided, because I liked Devin Haney in a lot of ways. I just wanted to, stir up the juices and, wanted to create better fights and better fight situations. I didn't like that he was downplaying better fighters than he was before he even got there. Guys like Lomachenko and even Teofimo Lopez, who was fighting phenomenal opposition at a very young age and winning legitimate world titles, and he was downplaying all these guys, and then he consistently started fighting guys who we never heard of. Like, it can't be, at a certain point, it's not an accident when you keep calling all the names out, and then we never heard of your opponents, which was kind of the situation that we were dealing with Devin Haney at the time. He was talking about Lomachenko, he was talking about Teofimo Lopez at the time when they had belts, but then he'd end up signing fights against guys that nobody knew who they even were, you know what I'm saying? And when he fought Jorge Linares, I wouldn't have had a problem with that if he wasn't selling himself as a fake world champion. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a guy who was in a world title fight, but that is a guy who an up-and-coming fighter on his way to world title aspirations would fight, a fading ex-world champion, or a faded ex-world champion, because at that time, Linares wasn't fading, he was faded. But the fact that he's fighting guys like that while selling himself as a world champion, again, this is something not even Gervonta Davis does. Yes, they announce him as a champion, but I've never seen Gervonta sell himself as a world champion with that fake WBA belt. You know what I'm saying? Gervonta Davis sells himself the tickets, sells himself in other ways that, again, it's fine. Do it all you want. Gervonta can fight. Devin Haney can fight as well. I have a problem with the hypocrisy and pushing that hypocrisy that already exists in boxing. So, we'll start with Linares, for example. I mean, Linares, we're talking about, that was your most notable opponent, Jorge Linares, and, I've seen that guy, somebody sent me a video from this guy, Blue Blood, and he was talking about how Lomachenko beat Luke Campbell for the WBC title, and then he could have fought Haney in that moment after that, because he had some time in between while Teofimo Lopez was fighting before the unification, or something to that effect. Guys, I saw the video from that guy, Blue Blood, by the way. Unlike him, I'm going to actually speak all facts, okay? I don't know where he got the white people in other sports. I never even talked about other sports. So I don't know where he got that one. That one's white, where white and black people are involved in football, hockey, and baseball. He got into a whole rant about that, which I never even talked about other sports and the race issue in any other sport. That one, I don't know where he pulled that one right out of his ass. He's also making up the fact that, Lomachenko could have fought Haney after the Campbell fight because he had some time. Obviously, recently you guys saw that Lomachenko had shoulder surgery. This is a shoulder injury that he's had for a while. So after he beat Luke Campbell, instead of fighting right away, he was hoping that the shoulder inflammation and damage may quell a little bit if he rested the shoulder. So no, he couldn't have fought Devin Haney right after he beat Luke Campbell because he was trying to rest in between fights, hoping that the shoulder would heal or do itself well and he wouldn't need the eventual surgery that he ended up having to get later on. Okay, so no, he wasn't going to be able to fight Devin Haney and continue to risk the shoulder surgery when he was looking for a bigger fight on the horizon, which was the Teofimo Lopez unification. So no, I mean, that was not the case. Also, I mean, we're talking about Luke Campbell while we're on the subject. I mean, Luke Campbell, the time Lomachenko fought him, and Luke Campbell, even at the time Ryan Garcia fought him, is a better fighter than Devin Haney has fought up until now throughout his career to this point in time. Now, George Kambosos was the undisputed champion, and you got to give him credit for that. But head-to-head, George Kambosos is not as good as Luke Campbell. A shot Jorge Linares is not as good as Luke Campbell, because I know your race-baiting fans are also going to come and say, well, how's that possible when he beat Linares and Linares had beaten Luke Campbell? The Linares that beat Luke Campbell was a more prime Linares. The Linares that fought Devin Haney was shot to bits already. Okay, like I said, he'd been knocked out in a round by Pablo Cano in 2019, and I beat Pablo Cano in 2012. Okay, and that guy knocked out Linares in a round in 2019. Okay, so that's how shot Linares was. And then Haney fought him after that first round knockout loss to Cano. Okay, that's how shot Linares was when he fought Haney. And again, I wouldn't have a problem with it if you weren't selling that fight as a world title defense. Because again, fighters are allowed to take on these faded or fading ex-champions on their way up to contention, just to pick up resume builders. But Luke Campbell, dude, Ryan Garcia has a better win on his record than any win on your record, bro. Because Luke Campbell, the time these guys fought him, is a better fighter than anybody you've beaten, dude. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's absolutely insane. So that's the first harsh truth I gotta unfortunately give, okay? The Haney and the race-baited fans that are constantly just going forward and harping on the race issue constantly. Because let's face it, all this has to do for you guys is the race issue. Even despite the fact that I've said, and the end, even despite the fact that in the whole scenario that I gave from the very beginning all the way to the very end, it ends up with Shakur Stevenson being the undisputed lightweight champion. That's the scenario that I gave from the beginning to the end. Doesn't end up with Lomachenko being the undisputed champion. It ends up with Shakur Stevenson being the undisputed champion. And you guys know that. I know that. I've been saying that. I've been giving you the whole scenario. I've said it in a couple of different interviews and a couple of different speaking segments that I've had on different videos. So you guys know that, and I know that. But you can't help yourselves making it a race issue. Not Devin. I don't believe Devin purposely does that. But unfortunately, his fans are such racists that the race baiting, they can't help themselves. Okay, so it ends up that you don't even see the actual end game that I was speaking the whole time. That doesn't even matter what color Shakur is. I think Shakur winds up being the best guy in the whole bit at the end of the day. And I'm not even looking at it through a skin color thing there. I don't analyze fights based on skin color. But that's a separate issue again. You know, we're going to stick to the issue at hand. Let me explain why I always, had some fondness for Haney in general. He was a young fighter. You can see he's having fun. He had some talent. And I've said it, Haney's issue with me, he said, I wish I was everything he was. Here's the thing, and here's one of the main issues I had with why I wouldn't apologize for Showtime wanting what I said back in 2020. The whole white privilege, systemic racism thing. You know, it's based on skin color and based only on skin color. It's race based consistently, and the race base is that there's white privilege and all that. You know, and I look at Devin Haney, and he's more Paulie Malignaggi than he is Floyd Mayweather. Now, just because he's undefeated and right now he's the undisputed champion, people are going to say that's blasphemy. He looks nothing like Floyd Mayweather fought like in his prime. Floyd Mayweather fought out of 500 different looks. Just could mutate his style in ways that are unfathomable for most fighters. Haney fights in a certain particular way, okay? He's jab first, set up counterpunching, feinting, using his legs. Keep the fight as simple as possible unless you have to complicate it. He probably goes to the body a little bit more than I did, but I probably threw more combinations than he did, okay? So when my hands weren't broken, obviously, because I had a lot of hand problems. Both of us are not big punchers. Now, why am I making this comparison? Because this is one of the reasons I actually like him. Here's the difference, though, between me and Devin Haney, and this is where the whole race problem comes into it again. That's not even a problem. It's an issue. Devin Haney comes from a money background. I didn't have daddy buying all my fights when I was coming up the ladder. I had to sign long-term contracts. Some of them contracts I didn't want to be in order to get my fights, okay? I had no choice, okay, because I didn't have daddy paying for my fights on the way up and being able to take my time and not sign any long-term deal so that when it was time to make my moves, I wasn't tied into a contract, okay? Why do I say that? Because Devin came up that way, and then I can remember Devin getting much more showbox dates than anybody else, and I can remember, and you know what's the funny thing about that is, I used to work at Showtime, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in this business. I know how the business works. You know what I mean? I know what the behind-the-scenes talk in the business and everything. And I can remember, like, I worked with the guys who did Showbox, even if I wasn't on Showbox. And I can remember the grumblings in the production meetings and the snickering jokes in the production meetings, like, oh, man, can't wait, there's a Devin Haney fight. And it wasn't because of the way Devin Haney fought. Okay, now me, you, and your daddy know what I'm talking about. Nobody else is going to know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to put it out there because I don't need to put it out there. Okay, but there was a reason why Showtime and the execs got psyched when you used to fight on Showtime, and it wasn't because you were a better prospect or a better fighter than all the other prospects. That's neither here nor there. I'm putting it out there so me and you know, because I'm letting you know that I know because I used to work there and I was around those execs. Okay, moving on. You get the matchroom deal. You don't have to sign a long-term contract. Again, this is not even me hating on it. It's just literally the only difference between Paulie Malignaggi and Devin Haney, because then I had to fight constant 50-50 fights or fight constant fights where I was an underdog in the fights with the same style Devin Haney fights as then Devin Haney has to. Devin Haney still hasn't been in a 50-50 fight. Again, not to knock the Cambosos win. That's a big win. Doesn't matter. You don't control who the undisputed champion is. So I'm not taking that away from Devin Haney. Devin Haney is the undisputed champion, and he beat the guy that was in front of him who had the undisputed title. But other than that, bro, like, you didn't have this whole shenanigans where, like, you got to take these tough fights to get to where you got to get. You got to pick and choose the fights. You got to make them the right way because you had the money behind you from the very beginning. That makes a big difference. Okay, and I'm only bringing this up because people are going to look at my skin tone as the privileged kind, okay? And I'm not, and I don't like to play those games, okay? But being that every one of your fans breaks baits and brings the race issue into it because of what you said, unfortunately, even if, like I said, I don't blame what Devin Haney said. He was a young kid and he's trying to be controversial. Now the race thing is constantly stuck here, man. The race thing is constantly stuck here. And the fight in your weight class, that's a 50-50 fight, just happens to be against the Eastern European guy. You know what I mean? It's or the fight in your weight class where actually the guy's probably going to be favored to beat you if you fight him is against the Eastern European guy, which is coincidentally part of the controversy that I said 2 years ago. It just happens to fall that way. It's crazy. You know what I mean? It happens to fall that way. It's crazy. The funny thing about what you said 2 years ago, what Devin Haney said 2 years ago, is I thought he was talking about Luke Campbell anyway. I didn't think he was talking about Lomachenko at the time. But again, even Luke Campbell's a tougher fight even 3 years later than anybody Devin Haney is beating on his record. Literally. That Luke Campbell, not Luke Campbell now, but that Luke Campbell from 3 years ago is still better than anybody Devin Haney's fought at this point in his career right now. Right now. You've just watched part 1 of my rebuttal to Devin Haney. Stay tuned tomorrow for part 2 on my rebuttal to Devin Haney and his comments and his fans. It's Paulie Malignaggi for Paulie TV, baby.